Testing 1, 2, 3. Alright. I think we're doing this right.
So does that mean we're going, or?
Yeah, we're going. Of course, I hope those computers don't make sounds. We'll deal with it if that happens.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There you go. You can hear it.
Ah, perfect. We were going for an echo effect, and so
No sound for that one.
yeah. I didn't know if those ones were supposed to light up too, or you know how in the old days they would have like on air, like an on air light.
Yeah, I'd love to get one of those one day.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Is there like an on air like the green dot there? Is that on air?
No, it's the green in the lower right. If you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh, okay.
makes it's working.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to another episode of the Napa Jordan Peterson podcast. I'm Dallas, and this is Ryan.
Yeah, I'm Ryan. Whatever. I didn't know you were gonna pause. This is only like our 5th episode, so we're still trying to get used to this.
Mm-hmm. And this is a compendium podcast. I don't know if that's the right word, but with a meetup group that we have in town, and we kind of match the content to go with the group and where we're at. And we've been getting into the biblical lecture series by Jordan Peterson. I think he calls it the psychology of the Bible, or
it's psychology of the biblical stories.
Yeah, oh, that's right. It's psychology
like
of the biblical stories, right? And you know, we're happy to have you be here as a part of our community, and we want to you know, see if we can't take this information and coalesce it in a way that allows us to kind of extend it out into, you know, your life, and you know, just another layer, another encoding, maybe some useful. You'll get something useful out of it. If you do, please let us know, because
like and subscribe, comment.
Yeah. Share with your friends.
Yeah. But yeah, it's to take what we do in the normal meetup every week and try to recreate it here on stream, so that we can put our ideas out there and you can tell us how horrible they are, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also, I think, to also complement some of Peterson's materials too, like our additional thoughts that can add to it. So if you're a Peterson fan and you like what he says and you're looking for more material, we hope to help you out with that.
Yeah, come here to continue the discussion in real time. So, having said that, we want to get into some of the material, but I thought first maybe we start with some Jordan Peterson current events, you know.
Oh, yeah. This week he asked, actually it was today, he asked what he should call his new Patreon subscription service, because he closed his Patreon this week. That was the other video he made. So he had $30,000 a month on his Patreon, and no more. It's all gone. So he's working with a couple other people to create his own Patreon service, so people can subscribe and support other creators and artists and so forth. And so he was, I think it was jokingly, because like you wouldn't just pick what a fan said on the internet, but you know, whatever, it's Twitter. He asked, you know, what should he call it? And let's see, I came up with some good names. Oh yeah, I called it $12 for life. I really like that one.
That's right. Just what everybody needs to keep their right-wing agenda going. Their alt-right wing, $12 for life, right? What else?
If it was left-wing, it would be like Bernie Sanders, $12 or $27, right?
Is that Bernie?
Yeah, there's a Bernie Sanders meme that's like $27. It's like a quote.
Is that like all he? I haven't.
Yeah, it was like his average contribution to his campaign. Anyways,
obviously, I won't be naming any Patreon services or Patreon-like services, you know, because I don't know that well informed on. Maybe I should say I won't be making any memes.
Yeah, well, it's just there's not much to it. You're not missing a whole lot.
What other makes me think about other funny names, because there's a lot with
people were saying like Bucko Coin, and you know, was like pay the devil his due, stuff like that. I think that was one of the ones I came up
Lobstreon.
with. Yeah, Lobstreon, Matreon, Hatreon 2.
Clean up your damn room, Treon.
Clean room coin or something.
Yeah. Wait, is it a cryptocurrency, or is it a...
No, it's a platform, and what I understand, he's going to take multiple ways to accept payment. So if one does get shut down, if like one credit card process doesn't shut down, you don't lose all your credit card people. So you'll have if you're paying with credit card, you have a bunch of different ways, and I'm sure he's going to have cryptocurrency as part of the mix too.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be a part of it, but...
I'm sure. It's the way forward.
So it is like a new PayPal or a new Patreon or. Oh yeah, why don't they just use PayPal? Or is it the same problem?
The same problems, and PayPal's just like direct sales, like, or like point to point, like I'm just giving you money, where like Patreon's like a subscription where I'm subscribing to Dallas, giving you money every month, and I don't have to think about it or do any action on my side.
Okay.
I think PayPal does have some tools that can do that, but it's not as streamlined as Patreon, because like they handle stuff too, like permissions, so like you can make posts for your patrons so that only they can see it, so only paying members. So they have other tools that are integrated.
So it's not just a money thing. It's like it's
a service thing too. Yeah.
So Patreon is like it's like a social media platform that is incorporated, making donations or making
it's like
contributions.
It's a platform for like donations for creators, so they can.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can get paid per like videos if you make videos. So every video you make, you get X amount of dollars. So you say, I really like this guy. He makes a great video. I'm gonna give him $5 for every video he makes. Or you can do it on a month-to-month basis, where like I'm just gonna give him $5 a month, no matter how many videos he makes. So they have a couple different options, and then a creator will set up different tiers too, like silver, gold, bronze, and they're more expensive. And as you pick the higher plans, you get more features.
Okay, huh? Dan Carlin should do that. Maybe that would motivate him to get some more of those hardcore histories out.
There you go.
I love those things, but I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
I don't know about Dan Carlin.
Oh, you don't know about Dan Carlin?
Tell me more about him.
Oh, he does podcasts, at least
about history.
About history, but he released like 2 a year.
Oh, okay.
And in the last like 2 years, it's been like 1 a year.
Oh.
But
it's like he's still doing it, right?
They're so epic, though. I don't know how he makes money doing it, releasing so few, but they're like universally, loved by everybody.
I'll have to check that out.
He's got this series about the Mongols. What's it called? I think it's called Genghis Khan or something. Oh no, it's some play on words with the Mongols. I can't remember what it is now though. But he's got this 5-part series on the Mongols, and actually I recommended it to Garrett, and he listened to it and he said he loved it. And so it's the shit.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Garrett's usually another member that usually joins us for the podcast, and he's part of the group, but not tonight.
Yeah. Not tonight. He's at home cutting off ears and drinking the blood of horses, which is what the Mongols did to survive.
Oh, there you go. I was like, I guess I got to watch the videos. Got to tune in there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Peterson Biblical Series.
Peterson.
Where do we start?
Yeah, so it's that's kind of an interesting question, because it's been a little bit rough going, transitioning from learning from the book to learning from the videos in the groups.
Actually, yeah, and that's the other thing too. Is it reminds me is the first video that we've watched, and we're only at the second video right now. The first video, he only gets into like the first line of the biblical stories, chapter he wanted to cover. So like the first one goes off in this wild tangent, I guess.
Yeah, he only mentions the verse. He only mentions the first verse of the Bible and says, "I guess we'll get into that next week." Yeah,
so the stuff he talks about is really interesting. It just takes a long while to and we're only starting. We're in the second one, which is basically just getting started on this. So we're not that far in right now.
Right. So we've been going piece by piece, and one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up and talk with you and with you guys about was see, I'm kind of always looking for tools as I'm going through Peterson's material, or anything really. I'm trying to find the practical takeaways, or how I could utilize this information in my own life.
Where did you learn that? To like look at it to use that like lens to extract tools out of. Is that just something you did on your own, or did you read?
I think I definitely read it. But I think I encountered it enough times. That was how I learned it.
Gotcha. Not single sources, a bunch of different places.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's some things in life you have to encounter,
Well, it's kind of like taking notes, but I think what you had here, since I've taken a peek at it, is it's much more than just like simple notes.
Yeah. Well, my note taking comes from Tony Buzan, if you've ever heard of him.
No, I haven't.
He's the guy that invented mind mapping, if you've heard of that.
Okay, yeah, I love mind mapping. I do it on the computer.
Yeah. The mind mapping on the computer is awesome because it's like boundless,
Yeah. So I think it's really good for organization, because you can start with one circle in the center, and then you create other circles and kind of link them together and figure out which circles go off of which circles. Yeah, it's a fun way to get organized, but it's sometimes you get those maps pretty big. You're like, okay, now I gotta get to work.
Well, that's why they say success is an elimination, right? So it's easy. Oh, really? Well, I think it was. It's either Leonardo da Vinci or Coco Chanel. One of them.
Oh, okay.
No, but that's one of those things that repeats too. Is like Coco Chanel said that what you want to do is put together the perfect outfit, right, and then take one thing away. That was her that was her secret. She said to everything.
It reminds me of Japanese memento mori, where perfection is something that's one thing removed from absolutely perfect, right?
Exactly.
It has one flaw, and that's what makes it perfect.
Right.
So it's very similar.
Right. And then that segues with the mind maps, because what you want to do is you want to if you have one idea, you have no good ideas, right? Like you have to have lots of ideas before you can get a good idea. And so that's why you create the mind map, is so you can make it that big, so you want to expand it out, so then you can shrink it down.
Gotcha. So even though the edges get a little blurry, it makes that center so much more in focus, because you have that structure and those other things supporting it, and those other ideas you're figuring out at the fringes.
Right, exactly. So that kind of that's why it's all colorful here. That's why I got the colored pens and I go for it.
So what do we have in focus here? What was some of the tools you liked?
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about tonight that I thought was particularly interesting is let's see. I guess I should start with the question, which is what does your night sky look like? And I want to give that some context, because what we're doing is we're talking about the psychological significance of the biblical stories. And so through the first lecture with Peterson, it seems to me like he also I think has this tool approach. He has this approach to finding utility in things, seeing what works. I think he said that he likes to only he likes to only present things that are like useful to you. He wants to make everything he does needs to be practical, because otherwise he'll say something like, "Why are you learning the damn thing?" or something like that. And so as we're going through, to me, in the second lecture, which is aptly named Chaos and Order, he's making his argument for I think he's making his argument. He really started making it in the first lecture, but in this one he's trying to connect sort of the physical and the spiritual. And he's trying to say that these stories are more sophisticated than we give them credit for. They're not to be taken literally. Yeah, you can take them literally. You can say, okay, Noah, got on a boat. A lot of people want to say, oh no, there's no way he got all these animals on a boat. And I think that he's saying that, okay, yeah, that's maybe true, but that's too literal of interpretation. Like let's become more sophisticated here. Let's look at what's going on. Let's kind of like look underneath. And so, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, this is like an abstract and what's going on psychologically. There's something in these stories why they were repeated for so long, and they survived, outlived a kingdom. They were passed from kingdom to kingdom. So when the kingdom fell, someone felt that these stories were important enough to pass on to their progeny, and so they could replicate. So there's like this kernel of truth to them that people keep hanging on to them, and so they're like really powerful stories. Like you said, it's not necessarily stories of what happened, but they are like the stories of us as human beings, like how our minds work, and these are the patterns we repeat almost. Like,
yeah, the people that believe them and pass them on seem to be the people that are the best fit for survival, and that continue to survive and continue to propagate. So I think yeah, there's something to them. There's something more to them that then can just be cast aside by saying, oh, all the people of the world come from two people. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, maybe that doesn't make any sense, but maybe that's not what they're trying to say.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way, because you can be an atheist and still believe in them metaphorically and patterns. So it's a real compatible way to mesh like science with religion almost. So it's really interesting.
Right. And so in doing that, kind of taking a multidisciplinary approach to looking at these things. I mean, Peterson is doing that. I think that, so how did I get to this thought? This thought comes from me about the night sky, but I got it from what he was talking about here, because he was talking about the thing that there's some truth. Some of the I think what he's trying to say is that some of the things he sees in these biblical stories are justified by the modern psychology literature, the modern scientific papers, what people are discovering and finding by studying, natural phenomena. They're finding that he's finding that in his interpretation or his esteem, they line up, and so he's looking at him. He's going deeper, and this is where I started thinking. He showed this. He showed this picture of a disc. I guess the ancient Mesopotamians believed the world was a disc, and so an artist in, I don't know, the 400s, or a more modern artist than the ancient Mesopotamians recreated this disc, and it showed man kind of on the border between the known world and the unknown world, and it drew it as sort of like the natural world versus the universe, the cosmos, what was outside. And there was this idea that you want to live right on the boundary of what you know and what you don't know. And that's kind of a recurring theme in the Bible, in the biblical stories, is that, man is not just supposed to sit at home and do nothing, but you also don't want to throw yourself into complete chaos.
Yeah, and like Peterson talks about how our brain is, we have a left brain and a right brain, right? And one's optimized for chaos, one's optimized for order. Like, it's very interesting how we have these dichotomies in ourselves, in our biology, that processes information differently. And that's what makes us so great, to be able to handle life or reality and everything that's thrown at us, and to tie that to order and chaos itself, and then have that tied into the Bible.
Right. Okay, yeah. So then our night sky. What does our night sky look like? And I promise we're gonna land this soon. But he's talking about the sky. He's talking a little bit about the sky, and how long did it take people to sort of put the constellations together? How long did it take them? Were they sitting there looking up at the sky and watching them and tracking the summer sky and the winter sky? And he was talking about how that's just a remarkable human advancement, and the biblical stories was also a remarkable human advancement, and how these things aren't to be taken literally. So it was like he's saying that when we were purely biological creatures, we built this circuitry in us, right? And then we became this sort of psychological creature because we began to communicate, we began to become social animals, we began to evolve and form, ritual and story and narrative, and then religion and philosophy. And all of a sudden, our imagination, what we could imagine, activated the circuits that the old biology used to activate, right? So there was, our imagined world became just as strong, if not stronger, than the biological world. Right.
Yeah. So there's like the physical, like we can see and touch, but then there's all these abstract concepts and like I said, imagination, like things happening purely that are intangible, that we have to think about and process. Because you watch the buffalo go to the river, and you see it over and over again. Then you can kind of extract it and go, oh, buffalo like to go to the river at this time of day, or you have to like abstract it to actually like be able to take it to the next level and really like be able to come strategy around and develop strategies, and the patterns just make you that much more intelligent about things, right? The more you know about the behavior or the patterns of the world, the more you can use them to your advantage.
Right. And then before long, you're not just out running around naked in the woods, but you're building a shelter and tracking the buffalo over the winter, and able to survive in new climates and yada yada.
Yeah, tools are important for our advancement.
That's right. And that's another good example too of the same thing, because physical tools became mental tools. Like the circuitry is the same. The circuitry hasn't changed. At least that's Peterson's argument, and I tend to agree with that. But so that's the point. That's the whole question, is that I would start thinking, okay, well, we have this physical day sky, and we have this night sky, and the night sky is so much more profound. And I got to thinking about, what about these things? What are these things? What could they represent? And I thought, the day sky, there's not much to it. There's the sun. And I was thinking that's us to other people, right? And the night sky, when all the stars come out, those stars are always there. And I thought that, who we are is always there. But a lot of times we don't see it, or we can't access it the way we want it to, or, like we think things, and then in the situation we act different, or we go, I want to do this, but we can't do it, or we want to, achieve a goal, but something, it's all because of the stars that are in our head. I almost thought of it literally like the inside of my brain, right? Because
well, go ahead. Well, it's like when you sleep, your brain has that side of it that processes and organizes information, so you can remember more, I would think. It's just it's just interesting.
Remember more while you sleep.
What?
Remember more while you sleep.
Well, I our brain, I think, I guess it's a hunch. I don't think this is tied to anything. That is like, it kind of like, it organizes it such in a way that we can recall better. Because I know, like, if you study for a test and then sleep, you're more likely to remember it. Or if you, there's also other mechanisms like music, listen to certain music. As long as you can play the back of the music during the test, you can remember it better.
Right.
So there's all sorts of tricks. But the sleep one is the one that makes me think about that.
But so then one trick, I think, to the brain that maybe we can ascertain from the biblical stories is to look at ourselves, as our personalities, as a night sky, and start dividing, like, how, and so that's the question I have, is what does your night sky look like? Because I got to thinking about it, and I thought, okay, I got a North Star, right? That's like where I'm going, and how
Your
clear
aims,
is it? Yeah. Am I looking at it? Am I walking towards it? And then I got to thinking, well, if the North Star is where I'm going, what's the South Star?
Where you don't falling back as lack of progress, right?
Yeah, lack of progress.
Failure. Yeah. But sometimes you have to fail to like learn how to, sometimes you're climbing the mountain and you hit a dead end. You have to like find another pass to get around the mountain. So failures also can be good.
That's right. It's like,
but you still go south to get around to that other path.
Right. It's like orientation or navigation, right? Yeah, because sometimes you got to go back to go forward. Right. That's really good.
So really it's not necessarily negative, but it's definitely the wrong direction, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So then I started thinking about, like, what are the constellations that I have in my personality, and what are they, and how are they organized?
Yeah, and then how do you explain it to someone else? You almost need like an analogy or something, because I can't see what's in your head, and you'd almost have to use something in the world of physical that I could model or use as a basis for the imagination to build off of, and then
and you said too about the right brain and the left brain, and so I wonder if maybe, like, you wouldn't divide your sky into things that are true about you, like you can't change, and the things that are true about you that you can change.
And that's a tough one, because we don't know who we are. We don't know what we really want. So there's this part of ourselves we can't access, and then there's also like different voices in our head with different perspectives. So like I can argue in my head, like Peterson calls it thinking, right? Where you model some person with a stance and someone with a counter stance, and they argue in your head to kind of duke it out, and you kind of like have to work out how you think that way. It's just like you got to weigh the pros and cons and be able to examine it and work it through in your head.
That's an interesting thing too, because with this analogy, if you had the constellations in your head, some of them, and let's say they represented different aspects of your personality, different aspects of you, then and something like that were to happen, you could imagine conversations between 2 or 3 or more of them, right? And that might be useful.
Yeah, because as you build these personalities, it's probably very useful to reuse them. But you don't really name them or anything. It's not like I have a George living in my head, so to speak. But maybe there's.
That's what I'm saying. Why not?
But I could definitely think, like, when I'm trying to understand what's going on from the left side of the politics or the right side of politics, like I have different modes where sometimes you're swayed one way on the issue or swayed on the others. Like you can kind of defend the points and kind of go back and forth. So there's definitely these different characters in my heads, and they have different views, but they don't necessarily have names because it's my name,
Right.
It's part of me. But it's interesting too when I talk to you, like. You can offload, make it a job a little easier by having your own person, and then we're just talking and like doing it in real world, and that makes my job a little easier because I can focus more like a laser on the one side and your points, and then I get a whole bunch of new information and things I haven't considered because I'm interacting with your brain.
Right. It's pouring in.
Yeah, it's a little slower too because I think you can kind of have conversations with yourself a lot faster than you can with someone else, and sometimes language gets in the way. You really have to figure out what the hell you're trying to say. Was one good quote from the group I think you came up with, or you repeated, or it was non-understanding is hell. Is that something Peterson said?
Yeah. Non-understanding is hell. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite quotes from the group this week.
Right. Oh. Yeah, that was from the lecture. But that the interesting thing about that though is that about talking to yourself can be faster. Is that when you talk to yourself, you're less likely to get stumped by biases. Do you know what I mean? Like when we talk to each other, if you start saying things that trigger my biases, like I'm gonna respond right away. But when you're talking to yourself, a lot of times you give yourself more leeway. Right?
Yeah, I guess. I almost wonder if you're more biased. Like, there's the recency bias thing. Like, you have the basketball game, and you tell them to count how many times the ball's passed, and then at the end you ask them, did you see the grill in the suit? And everyone goes, no. And then you have to watch the video again, and they pay attention looking for the grill, and there he's there. But because they recently, they poisoned the bias by saying, do this activity, you're not looking at all the other things that would make the frame interesting.
Right. Well, yeah, we have several biases, and they all work together.
Yeah, exactly. So right? there are things.
Biases might be another good way to look at it as a blind spot.
Yeah.
Right. Like sometimes it's hard to see our own blind spots, and that's true of all our subpersonalities. Or can be. Exactly.
So that's why it's good to talk to others. But there are definitely benefits to keep it in your head, like organizing things to the point where you can communicate them. For one,
That's kind of related to is the communication aspect, and I think that's something interesting that I've kind of learned from this stuff is that the way we communicating with yourself is very similar to the way we communicate with other people, and so or go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Like a lot of the messages I write on the internet, it's just me. It's almost like what I would say. It's very conversational, right? You just type what you would say.
Yeah.
It's very different than like formal writing where you have more time to organize and edit and flip it around.
Yeah,
but maybe that's just because of the time thing, how much time you have to prepare and send it out.
Right. Well, that's true. But the more prepared you are, I would think it's just more conversations. It's just when you just fire one thing out, that's one conversation you have with yourself, right? Or I don't know, maybe. But internal monologue and figuring things out, ascertaining things about your personality, it makes me wonder if developing more of those constellations in our mind, or at least the coming up with naming the different parts of our subpersonalities, wouldn't help us to have communication between them.
Yeah, I don't know I don't think I necessarily need a name. It's like I have all these different hobbies and different things I like, but I don't think naming would help at all. I think it's so worthless because I know how to access it. Like when I'm on this topic, it just comes to mind. It's like I don't have to communicate that to you. There's no reason to slap a label on it because there's no need to communicate those aspects. They're so readily available to us. But I guess the question becomes what's not readily available. I wonder if there is some things that are harder to recall or to bring to the surface, so to speak. I haven't really thought about it much.
Yeah.
There's some dark stars in the constellation, so to speak.
Well, that's true. There is, and that's an interesting thing too, because if south is going backwards away from your goal, right? Then the southern star, because so few people think about problems or things that are bad. Everybody wants to think about good and going forward, and they don't want to be bothered. And I don't mean like politics and stuff. Like people love politics. People don't mind thinking about starving children or whatever. What I'm saying is that people don't want to think about the fact that they're gonna die.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
They don't want to think about the fact that there's another bias. It's like I have this problem with drinking. Let's say they don't want to think about that. People that have problems with drinking, they don't really it doesn't bother them. You see what I'm saying? Like that would be going south, I guess, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you have like you said, drinking now, so I'm thinking addiction. Obviously, if you keep trying to climb the mountain and you can't get up it, it's bad to keep doing it, right? It's like you got to try something new,
right?
And like you said, maybe you don't realize that till you can like identify the problem that that you have a problem, and then you want to fix the problem. So there's like all these different steps. I know you have to like get to your mind to those points. So like you have to recognize there's a problem, and then you have to figure out, is it a problem you really want to fix? Because fixing problems is not easy. Problem solving is a lot of work.
But I think looking at problem, if you want to problem solve, we all need to make decisions in our life, and that's all a result of problem solving. And so if you want to make the best decisions, you start by looking at the problems.
Yeah, and I think that's like what Peterson's talking about, like about always speaking the truth and seeking the truth. I forgot the rule exactly, but it's like there's a lot of like underpinning in there where it's like find the rot, and seek truth out. Like by speaking the truth, it'll be easier to find what's true, and by actively seeking for that truth, you'll be able to figure it out on your path if you're heading north or not. It's like in your journey, you got to be able to see, and you got to be able to see. And I think if you lie to yourself or you lie, you kind of muddy the waters, and that lives in your head now, this alternate universe almost, and like it's very easy to forget you're thinking in the alternative universe, and you can end up living in a completely imaginary world that has no real connection with the real world. People delude themselves into all sorts of weird things. I'm sure we've all seen it in one way or another. It's just like, I was there, dude. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
So it's you have to seek that truth, and you that way you can kind of weed and be more clear and more focused on what's real, and that way you can focus on your path and see if you have a problem, and and then you gotta decide to fix it.
Right. All right. So now I'm trying to think about how this night sky analogy could be more practical, or in terms of what you're saying about it. So, what are you thinking? Like it might not be. It's not necessarily that good of a tool for, naming the stars in your sky, or are you saying that you can't see that the constellations in your sky would be subpersonalities?
Well, I mean, I think they exist. I think the stars exist, but it's the name thing is the difference thing. I think it'd be really cool to hear what you think your constellations are, like if you had an analogy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's a reason we don't defaultly name them, like the personalities in our head, or the discussions we have in our head, or the aspects of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Car Ryan is Car Ryan, it's
Car Ryan.
Yeah, it just doesn't need like a different name,
Like when you're driving.
It doesn't need like be George or what. It doesn't need a label. It's just a part of who you are in your head. So, but if I wanted to, I mean, and it would be weird if I said, "Hey, Car Ryan says this," you're like, "What the?" Yeah, I don't know. It's just. But if I wanted to talk about cars, that has a label, and I can use that to communicate.
Well, what do you think of the night sky analogy? Is it work or does it not work?
Well, what goes on the day? So the day you have the sun, just like you have the moon. So you have something steady and constant in both. You have stars at night. You have clouds in the day, but you have clouds at night too, I guess. And maybe they block or obfuscate the world or the stars. And I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm trying to think of a way to present it and make it usable. Like right now to people.
Is it always usable? I mean, like I think that's the tough thing about like metaphors and patterns. It's like they're a tool, right? They help you look things. It's I like use the word lens a lot. It's like, okay, if I view this problem through this lens of day and night, or chaos and order, or, what does that help me really? It maybe help me organize. So maybe it's a tool for deciding. Like you said, it helps you visualize, in your imagination. The problem is day and night, the two sides of it. And like I said, it helps you organize and walk down and think of it. Because you can take patterns from real world day and night and then apply those metaphorical patterns and stuff.
Okay, you're right. So then the question would be, how do you see your inner verse?
Well, I this is such a new concept to me. I don't know. I'd have to see.
This is a new concept to me too.
Yeah,
but in terms of the night sky thing, that was like brand new. Like I never thought about visually imagining what my inner verse looks like, and so maybe that's the tool. Maybe that's the discovery.
Yeah, and I don't know the framework how you could self-explore or anything. I just don't have any reference. I know one thing though. We talked about in the past was like the you said North Star, like finding a path forward. And then Peterson talks about like having an aim, goal, a direction. So we've talked about that in the past, and I've thought about that a lot. So I feel like I could probably comment more on like the past stuff a lot better because I've had more time to think about it.
Because this is
so
a brand new
idea.
And
yeah, but the night and day, like I said, I think it's just like a tool that one of your many tools that you could apply to the situation. Like, okay, I'm looking at it right now, and it's me and my dog, and he always does this behavior I don't like. But what if it was day and night? You know, if you like, you apply that metaphor.
How would you do that?
You could.
Is that what you're saying you would do? That's how you would test it.
Well, I think you'd probably take some practice to define whether you make the dog the day and you the night, or the world. You know, different aspects of the behavior be one and not the other, not the actual entities themselves. Because it's a loose abstract pattern. There's probably a couple different ways to apply it, and after applying it each way, you'd have to figure out which one has the most meaning and most representation, something you got out of it. And that at least helpfully guide you. And you'd have to practice, like I said, and think about it, like how you'd apply that and how it would have value.
Well, that's that practical, useful side that I apply to everything in terms of, using it and applying it and seeing if it does help you, right? Because that's the idea with all this stuff is you want to internalize things that help you.
Yeah, and so like I said, like the seeking the North Star thing, I can see that like a path on a journey, and I can then apply that to like, okay, I'll say I want to learn Italian or whatever. So that's my destination. So I can view that as a trip, and if I view it as a trip, then I can see there's all these stops along the way on my trip, and you can take the real world experience of a trip and kind of apply it to this metaphorical thing I haven't experienced yet, and kind of build in my head this vision of how it might go and what it might look like. And I can, like I said, you take some practice, but then you can kind of build parallels between the patterns and the real world, so to speak.
Well, that makes me think about another useful tool, which is to diagnose before you prescribe, right? And so maybe that's what maybe I'm prescribing this night metaphor without a diagnosis, right? Because it's like, I wonder what's the problem that it's supposed to solve.
Yeah, it's a little bit cart before the horse in some ways, but I think it's also like our brains is full of all these neurons, and they have these interconnections, and the more you connect things, so like I think you found like a potential connection, like, hey, I could use this night day metaphor and apply it to things in my life, and by having that connection, you can then start exploring it. And I wonder if like certain metaphors, like day and night, is easier for one person to use. Another person has to look at like chaos and order. Or another person's got to look at like yin yang. And there's all these different dichotomies you could put the lens through, and take the patterns, so to speak, that the lens makes you think of, and create these new neuron connections that you didn't have before.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what happens is you build a framework and then connect them to it. Yeah. And so that's, to me, you just said something that makes me think of something profound. And that's, I think, what is really profound to me about the biblical lectures is that, because I've studied the biblical lectures before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the thing is that, like for a person like me, and I don't know, this might not speak to everybody, but I'm kind of like looking for optimal structures, like ways, like you talking about dichotomies, right? I'm looking for like optimal dichotomies that will help, that make the most sense to me, that will help me in the most situations, and that I can use easily, right? So I don't know if
it's like tools to live by or guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. But they all have to attach to a framework, right? Because otherwise they're kind of too hard to access if they're just laying around. It's like they say, a tool in the wrong place is the same as having no tool at all.
Or it's like our brain thinks of objects as either tools or obstacles.
Right.
And so if it's not a tool, guess what it is?
It's an obstacle, yeah. But so the biblical series is, so I've been looking for like a toolbox to put the tools in. And the biblical series for me has been a really good toolbox.
Yeah, I think it like I said, if the Bible is what Peterson says, where it's like it's a psychological telling of the story of who we are, how we work. It's like our biology and physiology work this way. Like, we're gonna Cain and Abel. We're gonna have, you as a parent might have two sons that hate each other, right? And one luck. One's going to be really lucky and is going to be fine, and the other son just has the worst luck in the world or whatever.
Right.
And looks like God hates him almost.
Yeah.
You could apply these stories in those metaphors and you reflect. And so if it's modeling the real world, I could see how these stories are showing us as human beings how to be the winner of all games, so to speak, right? They're the ideal. Well, they don't necessarily tell us the ideal behavior, but they kind of tell us some of the bad behaviors, right? Or they try to explain at least what we know about ourselves, so that you said we can use them as tools, so we know what not to do, and maybe hopefully model some of the behaviors we want to do.
Right.
So like I said, as we play all the different games, whether it's like actual sport or just politics at work or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like as long as you tell the truth. If this is going to be a rule that's easy to remember, it's simple, that you can apply, that's going to make, whether you're playing sports or you're at work or you're at home, whatever, it's going to always apply, and it's like it's easy to remember. And
right.
I'm repeating myself now, so I'm going to be quiet.
No, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, and that's there's something to the biblical stories that kind of has that. The tools in the biblical stories kind of have that. They're a little bit easier to remember, and they work in a lot of situations.
Yeah, it's like the Bible's got the 10 Commandments, and I'm sure if we would follow the 10 Commandments, that we would be that person that would kind of rise to the top of the hierarchy.
You think so?
Yeah, if you were...
it's interesting because you've alluded to that twice now, which is like winning the games and rising to the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah, it's the 12 rules. It's still fresh in my head.
But I don't think of it that way. Kind of because of the Cain and Abel thing, because you can't, you don't know, like, what is it they say, like, God distributes justice, but the only thing we know about God's justice is that He doesn't choose to distribute it like fairly.
Well, I think one of the things Peterson's getting across is that random things happen and it has nothing to do with God. Bad stuff happens to us. I mean, the default state of being is suffering. Right. And however, there are actions you can take to make the suffering less.
Right.
And I like the 10 Commandments, I think, or even the 12 rules is one of the examples he talks about is when you have a parent pass away, you and your siblings can fight and you can make it the worst experience for everyone, or everyone can kind of pull together, and even though you're going through the worst thing in the world, as long as you try to act like adults, let's say, follow all the rules, you can elevate the experience and make it something that makes you stronger, and you iterate on, you become better than you were before. It's not a downward spiral, but the exact opposite. You're not lifting not just yourself up, you're lifting everyone with you up.
Yeah. That's the important thing. That's that's a really good measure of a tool. If it doesn't help just you, if it helps other people too, that's a really good tool. So do you think that there would be some benefit for you learning the 10 Commandments? I don't know how you would see that helping you to win the game or rise in the hierarchy. But like memorizing them and then weighing decisions against them, or
from what I remember, I simplified the 10 Commandments to the Golden Rule, which was do unto others as you would do unto them. And it wasn't until I joined this group that I heard the Platinum Rule, which is don't treat me. I would treat you like I would treat myself. That's the Golden Rule. But the Platinum Rule is I need to treat Dallas how Dallas wants to be treated.
Right.
It's like a higher resolution. It's I have to actually pay attention to Dallas and not treat him like he was myself, but actually treat him like he wants to be, which is interesting because that's a whole different question.
But that's one of those rules that lifts other people up as well as yourself, because I feel good because you're treating me like I want to be treated, and you feel good because you intelligently applied a tool.
Well, it gets really complex, and I don't think the Platinum Rule is something Peterson's actually preaching or anything. It's just something that someone brought up. But I think Peterson's probably more along the lines of preaching the Golden Rule, at least and even the 12 rules aren't it'd be hard to link. Maybe you could link one or two of the rules to a commandment, but they are pretty far off. It's not like his 12 rules is exactly like the 10 Commandments.
Right.
I consider one of the rules it's like a prescriptive thing. It's like this is a remedy. It's like a home remedy for fixing this problem, but it doesn't apply to everyone because not everyone has this problem.
Right.
So I think the rules are definitely different categories.
Hmm.
But I think the other thing too you have to remember about the Ten Commandments or even these rules is like because everything's so chaotic, is that things are so complex that the rule isn't hard set in stone. It's not like it's more of a guidelines. Like Peterson talked about Harry Potter, right? And there's characters in Harry Potter where you think they're the heroes, right? They're the main characters, but they're breaking all these rules. And how can heroes break rules? Well, because they're breaking the rules in a just way. Like they found the rot in the rule, and they realize in this specific situation that the context makes it just because their aims and goals and their context. And there's plenty of people that are trying to do the right thing, but maybe end up doing the wrong thing too. So that's a lot harder to say when you break the rule if it's just or not. Even if you're seeking just, you could somehow make things worse, so to speak.
A good way to discuss that is contradictions in the Bible. Like I'm starting to think there's no contradictions in the Bible.
Well, I think it's probably just such a complex material. You really have to be a scholar in it to understand. But that's life, I think. And that's what's great about the Ten Commandments, so to speak, or 12 Rules for Life. It's a simpler framework or a low resolution framework to at least get you a starting point. Because even Peterson said in his January Q&A video that there's a place to lie, even though he's preaching truth. There are good reasons to lie. He's never saying never not lie. I can't imagine.
You also couldn't not lie.
Yeah. A lie is he said is like a procrastination, and I think you want to minimize it, but there are definitely uses I can't think of an example right now, but
well, they're easy. If you were being robbed, right, and your wife is around the corner or something, you might lie to have the robbery go quicker. So he's leaving quicker.
And I know he lays out in the January video more clear. I completely forget what it is, but I just watched it. He said, the type of lies you have to watch out for, and I'm sure in the 12 rules he hits that pretty hard too, and he's got the whole chapter on truth. But it's I know that when you lie to spare someone's feelings, it's just delaying actually dealing with that difference in feeling or difference in opinion, and you're not really communicating. You're not really giving each other the respect that you can, connect on that deeper level. You're not even creating the opportunity to grow together.
That's a good point though, because sometimes we lie to preserve our own identity, because we're not ready to shine the light on something that could be painful within ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We have insecurities that we don't want to address today or don't want to get into, or we're busy. There's plenty of reasons we will procrastinate.
And it's hard to fault someone for that.
That right? Too, but
who doesn't have that?
But I think one of the problems though is if you sweep too much under the carpet, like I said, you have all these different lies floating around. It's harder to keep track of where the truth is, and it's gonna make your when you're trying to travel your path that much harder.
That's true too, and that should that should be the focus of our group. There's this idea, I don't know how to properly phrase it, but there's this idea that, I don't know, I keep staring off into...
No, I'm just checking the clock. That's what I was doing. I'll see how much time we had left.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. There's this idea that doing the right thing will not be appreciated in the moment, but it will be appreciated later. I think that's, at least for me, that's something that I struggle with constantly. Yeah.
I know Peterson talks about all the controversies he's been in, and as long as he said he was honest with himself and he told the truth and he did his best he could do, and there's a couple other things there. He's trying to be precise as he could be. That because he carried himself in this manner, that he came out better than he entered the controversy as. So every time someone's trying to bring him down, he just gets more popular and brought to a new audience. So they're hopefully these methods he describes in these books will give us that framework that we can all carry ourselves in and elevate society.
That's true. Hopefully. So in conclusion, I think that the night sky is a good analogy for creating a visual. It's a good place to attach visuals to of yourself. if you give it enough credit.
Yeah, well, I think that if you can come up with a pattern or a metaphor, and you can try to apply it to, like, you came up with that tool,
Mm-hmm.
you try to apply it to other things, and if it can make you see things you couldn't see before. I mean, we all have, like you said before, these blind spots. Like, unless I share my perspective with you, I won't see my own blind spot until you say, "Hey, what about this? You didn't see that."
Right.
Like, well, maybe it was a blind spot, or maybe it just hadn't got there yet. But you know, it's almost like these tools are another way to have a conversation with another person, right? You can look through it as the night sky, you can look through it as chaos, and then you can put those two together and maybe get a bit of, you know, each have their own blind spots potentially, and
analogies
helps you
and metaphors,
helps you get a more complete view of what's really going on.
Yeah, those are great tools in and of themselves. So I'm thinking that we should, you know, because this kind of like goes along with our meetup, right? And so one thing that we kind of decided this week was we were gonna, you know, adjust the balance of personal growth and social warfare. So I was wondering if we should end on social warfare.
Okay, I mean, like culture war stuff.
Culture war, yeah. That's what I mean? Culture war. I keep calling it the wrong thing. Political stuff. I don't like calling it political stuff because I have a funny definition for the word political. That's an interesting thing. If you ever want to do with your friends and family, is ask them how they define politics, because that's one that everybody defines differently.
Yeah, it's like in the meeting we even though we're supposed to be an apolitical group, but somehow we got on like, okay, so what is everyone's political affiliation? And we were trying to figure out how to define that, whether we say left or right, or we say Republican, Democrat, or how we voted the last time. Even trying to nail that was difficult.
Yeah.
And you know, so what type of culture war? I mean, that's the other tough part is what do we have different opinions on that we could educate each other on? That's a tougher topic, I think.
Is that the purpose of culture war conversation? Finding how we can educate each other with different differences and opinions?
Well, I'd say that would be a productive outcome of a culture war, right? Is integrating different thoughts and opinions into something that's cohesive and works.
I was just thinking if that intention had been set, or it was set, you know, before we did things like that, I think it would help me to find more productivity in those kinds of conversations, because I know usually I'm the one that doesn't really find productivity. But yeah, so that's interesting, because, and I can think of a place already, something with memes or like that kind of stuff, because I think the meme war is or you know what, I have some very controversial political beliefs because I don't get into politics too much. So how about this? I have one idea. Okay, the alt-right, not a real thing, just a troll movement.
Possible, but the problem with troll movements is that it's actually going to attract people that think that way. So if they do extreme, let's just say every group's got someone, right? Someone's got to hold it. So they do exist. Mm-hmm. But let's just say that you're just saying that it's probably a lot smaller than what people how big they think they are, or how big people perceive them to be.
Because of the trolls?
I think so. It's like there's a joke on the internet. It's like, I was only pretending to be retarded. Yeah. You know, it's the problem is like, oh, then it looks like a place for retards, and then, you know, it tracks that. It's like if it quacks like a duck, and
so they're out there like and they're looking for a home, and then they find it.
Well, and then you have people.
But so then you think there's a chance it might have been started as a joke?
Maybe, yeah.
So if it was, then doesn't. So, but then you're saying that even if it was started as a joke, a group of people, a number of people picked up the mantle and kept walking after the jokesters left.
Yes, exactly. And then there's people that, let's say, are young kids that don't know better, that can see see the smart, edgy, kind of sarcastic, funny people hanging out with all these bad people, and they get the wrong idea. Like, this is where all the smart, intelligent, funny comedies going on is in this horrible hate movement.
Yeah, that's right. and now it's got even more followers because they want to keep the movement going because they're finding it entertaining. right?
Yeah, so are they trolls or are they, alt-right at that point?
It's becoming like a sandwich. You have the people that are the true believers, then you have the trolls, then you have the people that are enjoying, and then none of them, they
it's a mess, and there's trolls that will play that pretend to be social justice warriors, like super radical social justice warriors. So you have like this.
Yeah, exactly.
You have these pose law come in where you're not sure they're joking or if it's actual real life, like someone actually holds those beliefs and claims. I know that like some of the media outlets, you have satire sites like The Onion, but then you have real sites too that seem to like try to come up with the most controversial titles. Like they take a position that you seemingly no one would have just to get, or at least a position that's not in the mainstream, to get people to like read it and understand and like what the hell's going on here.
Right.
So that's like quick clickbait. There's the whole that phenomenon going on because I don't know, it's no longer news anymore. It's all infotainment, and whatever gets the most eyeball gets the most ads, and whatever gets the most ads gets the most money.
Yeah, we're on a less than a 24-hour news cycle now because it's just like as soon as you can publish it, it can go out. And you don't have to wait for the newspaper to be printed in the morning or the 6 o'clock news or whatever that people used to wait for.
Yeah, so it's tough. So I think it muddies the world. What's happening in the world, we really don't know because there are a bunch of pretending. But at the same time, I don't see any reason to stop comedy. Like, people are going to be sarcastic and satirical or be trollish. It's just part of nature, and I don't think we should be banning that either. So I think we just got to get used to certain aspects and be smart about it. Like, I think as we see more clickbait titles, we actually have a word in our language for it. That's clickbait. We've established it has an identity. We see the problem. We know what it is. And like everyone just has to kind of like get used to that phenomenon and put that feather in their caps. And it's just, oh, that's just a clickbait title. I don't need to read it because they're just trying to get a rise out of me. I think some of it is just like growing pains. It's like the internet's barely in its teenage years, and we have all these bumps and bruises and all these things that we're getting used to global communication. I mean, we've had global communication before, but now it's almost at a free cost that almost everyone can do. So it's so prevalent, and it's such a huge change to everyone to be able to reach everyone in the world. It's like the more people you expose yourself to, the more likely chance you are to offend someone, as Peterson points out. And so when you're talking to the world, yeah, you're going to be offensive. It's just normal.
Yeah, Peterson's whole thing is compelled speech, right?
Yeah, he thinks that's a line that should be crossed.
That's what kicked all this stuff off, right? And I guess he's kind
of
like...
That's probably one of those earlier controversies, I'd say.
Yeah. See, I bring it up because I don't necessarily agree with what Peterson's doing.
Okay.
So, which is, kind of interesting.
What part... You don't believe in... You think people should be able to... You're pro-compelled speech? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm pro-compelled speech. No, I'm... like for example, he sends out this newsletter I've seen. He has this email newsletter, and it's like all these news articles about things that are, he's against, and I don't know how I feel about that. Like when he does interviews with people, and they talk asking about feminism or Marxism or socialism or free speech or transgender and all this stuff. Like, I don't know how I feel about all that. I don't know if that's I feel like it's diluting his message.
Yeah, it's almost like injecting politics where it doesn't belong, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, or that's a perfect example. Is like the way he'll be like, even the biblical lectures, because we've been watching these videos. I don't know if you've watched them, but like just in this lecture, he'll be like, and this and that and this and this is where the postmodernists get it wrong. It's like, well, no, of course you bloody aren't gonna, and it's just like, why throw that in, like. Or at least I think that's a good question to ask, but for me, I just don't see the purpose of it, or that I don't see it doesn't. I don't not like it, and I don't like it.
Well, I think on one hand, I'm not sure either if it's good or bad. He has said that like what he's trying to discuss is under politics, that politics rests on it. And I think that it's sometimes hard to bring up some of the topics he wants to discuss without bringing up the political current events and everything else going on. And the fact that, we're dealing with current events. Like, he'll be in the spotlight about exactly, some specific political issue that someone twisted his words on. So it's kind of hard to avoid that. But I also wonder, like, if he was just a self-help guru, let's say like Stephen Covey, who did the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Like, if he was just self-help, would he be as popular and as helpful? I think one of the things he's providing as a service is so many blending so many disciplines. He is taking politics, and he's taking religion, and he's taking psychology and neuroscience and biology, all these like different pieces in the mix. And I think he's got such a large audience because he can speak so well about all of them together. He brought them together in a cohesive framework where they all play nicely and actually make sense.
So it's kind of like I'm complaining about the part of him that also has made him a part of my life, which I appreciate.
Potentially.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not saying that. I mean, if he was self-help, maybe he would be a part of your life, but he might be less part of others. And
it would take longer for me to discover. Like,
yeah, you would maybe not would have heard of him, but
I guess it's smart. I mean, if you're trying to get an idea out, you know what it is. It's Donald Trump winning the presidency. Like, he's smart. Like, Donald Trump was smart.
Yeah, I believe that.
Right? Like, and it's interesting because I feel the same way about Donald Trump. I don't like him. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that he won the presidency the way he did. But you know what? It's smart because he won. Because he's the president.
Well, I'm hoping Peterson kind of brings a framework so it's not just like the outcome justify how you got there. I forget, it's like, and justify the means.
Okay, so that's my question is, like, okay, so it's harder for me with Peterson than it is with Trump because Trump's so much clearer of an example. So it's like, okay, so let's just suspend disbelief and give Trump the benefit of the doubt, and let's say that he was like some great he's like George Washington reborn, right?
Okay.
Right, but like let's just say he's the best. I don't know. I don't know who that would be. Maybe Abraham Lincoln or John F. Kennedy or whoever.
Washington was fine.
Right. Okay, so let's say he was that, and he used this, technology, the tweeting, the hate speech, all that stuff to win the presidency, right? Yeah. Because my suspicion is that Donald Trump is not a great person because those are the means he had to win. Because a great person would lose the election rather than. So that's my question is like does the end justify the means? Wow, I can't believe that's the question because that's like day one. That's like high school. Where is that where you learn about utilitarianism?
Well, it's like the greater good outsees the needs of the few.
Yeah, that's like one of the first philosophical questions everyone encounters, right? I think it's in sociology textbooks or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just think that, let's say so we talked about the games, the iterations in the games, and there's a certain role set, let's say, that can elevate the game and make it better every time the game's play. We all get better. And then there's a downward spiral, right? If we all start using bad behavior to justify bad behavior, guess what happens? We all do bad behavior because it's justifiable, and it ends a downward spiral. What Trump may be doing is smart, but you could argue he would be a better president or a better leader or a better person if he maybe was a little more classy, right? Or didn't engage in so many bad behaviors. So maybe he's doing some things good and some things bad, so he's not really spiraling up or spiraling down. He's just doing the best he can for who he is and where he's doing. And whoever said the presidency is easy, right? It's got to be one of those complicated jobs on the planet.
Yeah, you almost make it sound like... Oh, go ahead.
I feel like if he would engage in less bad behaviors, probably would have some more support. And I think that's what Peterson's trying to say is these behaviors are going to elevate us all. And if Trump was more classy like Obama, let's say, and you acted in a way that was respectful, and that way it would elevate everyone else because it would look up to him more. And no, you never had your kid be more like Trump. It's maybe some parents do, but it's not the same way as how Obama carried himself. Obama was very charismatic and he carried himself very well. I just don't agree with his policy, right? Where Trump, it's I can't say he carries himself well. Sometimes he does what's necessary. He's very pragmatic. But I agree with his policies more. So,
you know, there's another biblical story looming here for future podcasts, but there's two brothers, and the one brother always says he's not gonna do there's something about his dad's like go out and till the field, right? And the one brother always says, I'll not, I hate it, no, it's stupid, complains, but he always does it. The other brother always promises, oh yeah, I'll do it, I'm on top of it, I'm gonna do it so good, but he never does it. And it's like, which one would you rather have?
The one that complains and does it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that'll have to be for a future podcast. Well, anyways, I think we got into a little bit of political stuff there. I mean, I know it wasn't heated, but I think our views are probably closer aligned, than...
yeah, hopefully...
I don't know if you feel comfortable saying who you are.
I'm not even sure. It changes. So
chaos embodied. I don't know if that's this we've described yourself. So.
Well, it's like Trump does something, and I'm the biggest fan. The next week, I'm like... Could you imagine anyone voted for that guy? It's a roller coaster, right?
I don't mean that way though. I mean like you and I are like we're more like.
Yeah, we're probably closer, leaning one way or the other.
But I mean we're like what am I trying to say? Like a little more like punk rock than like political rock.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe not.
More like a skeptic or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or skeptical and cynical. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Cool.
Maybe not though. Who knows?
All right.
I was just trying to riff off what you're saying about how you love chaos, because I also love chaos. So that's what I was trying to say. But I didn't know if you wanted to let the world know that you endorse chaos. But now they know. Unless this is not live. Is this live?
We're still live, yeah. Doesn't matter, dude.
I'm having marital problems.
Who isn't? All
right. Yeah, right.
We're going to call it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wait. So, thank you very much for joining us. We have a Facebook group, Napa Jordan Peterson. We have a meetup group. But actually, don't come to the meetup group unless you're in Napa, because we don't add people that don't show. But the Facebook group.
Yeah, Facebook is a way to interact with us.
Yeah.
Tell us how we're wrong in the comments. There's all the comments on the videos.
Yeah, let us know any opinions that whatever, and yeah, we gotta work out all that stuff. But all right.
Yeah, we want to hear your perspective so that we can sharpen ours. So
exactly.
All right.
Number 6 in the books, or 5? Number 5. 6.
I don't remember.
Perfect.
We'll look it up next week.